Hello and welcome to the fourth video in our series, Retiring Soonish, 5 Do's and 1 Giant Don't. Today we cover what could go wrong in retirement. It's a fun one. I am Darryl Rosen, your financial strength coach. The purpose of this channel is to help you create safety, simplicity, and most of all, financial strength at any age or stage of your journey through life. When considering retirement holistically, I always ask these 5 questions. What will you do? What will it cost? How will you pay for it? What could go wrong? And what will your priorities be? By the way, you can find links for the first 3 videos in this series in the description below and on the Retiring Soon-ish playlist. Inflation risk is the risk that you will lose purchasing power as prices rise. Any American who has been to the grocery store lately or turned on the news or emerged from under any rock may have noticed that the consumer prices have really spiked. The annual rate of inflation in the United States hit 6.2% in October of 2021, the highest in more than 3 decades as measured by the Consumer Price Index, which we also know as CPI. Everybody wants to know what to do. Unfortunately, nobody knows how long this is going to last. We've had a once-in-a-lifetime event, COVID, which has and continues to shock the system. As this has dragged on, the consensus on whether inflation is permanent or transitory, known as temporary, has gone back and forth. Currently, more and more economists feel some level of inflation is here to stay, at least for a while. The problem is that for every investing strategy that purports to be useful against inflation, there is historical data that suggests that the same strategy has performed poorly in other periods of high inflation. So do this. Stay invested in stocks which have the potential for higher returns. Don't panic. If you're still working and in the pre-planning phase of retirement, make sure you include an estimate for inflation in your analysis. If you don't include inflation, it's garbage in, garbage out. Lately, I've been raising the inflation rate from 2.5% to 3% in my client projections. If you think prices are out of whack, consider spending a bit less until the situation changes. Heck, the other night, a neighbor of mine wouldn't buy steaks for his own sons because of the high prices. Wait, that was me. Stay invested. If you are a future retiree, stay invested. If you are retired, just stay invested. The next 2 risks are related. Market risk is the risk that your investments will lose value due to market swings. Sequence of returns risk is defined as the markets not cooperating as you near retirement, causing you to spend too much of your nest egg in the early years. What does it mean when the markets don't cooperate? Well, you never want the years immediately after you retire to be down years for stocks. The way to combat this is by having enough liquidity in your account so that you never ever have to sell it in an inopportune time. Keep enough cash available to pay your bills. This hits home for me. When I was 41, I sold my retail wine business. I completely underestimated how long it would take to ramp up my new business to earn income, and I underestimated how much I was spending at the time. Should have been paying more attention. Anyway, all the money from the sale of my business was invested in the stock market in 2007. Can you tell where I'm going with this? As the market was falling, I was selling. The years when my assets were the highest, I experienced the worst returns possible, and that money never came back. Now, because I was young, I was able to build back up. But imagine if that happens to you at 65 years of age with your earning years behind you. By the way, if you have a competent advisor, this should never happen to you. Long-term care healthcare risk is the risk that a long-term health event will eat up your savings. Now, I'm not going to throw a ton of stats at you on this one. We know that highly specialized care costs money, in some cases a ton of money. And although I have clients in my advisory practice who buy long-term care insurance from me, that doesn't mean it's always worth it or necessary for others. The insurance industry loves to trot out the statistics to scare the bejesus out of people. But what is less understood, unless you really look at it, is that older people spend less money as they age. So consider this. The go-go years of early retirement are replaced with more sedentary years later on, where people flat out just spend less. If you've planned properly, there should be money left over for care because your projected spending number will keep increasing, but the actual spending won't because you're too old or sick to do anything. It's pleasant, I know. With all that said, I bought a small long-term care policy because my father has dementia, and that kind of care can be costly. I wanted to have a little hedge, and in nearly all cases, an insurance company will do a much better job of growing money to cover long-term care later in life than you or I would. Incidentally, there are 4 ways to pay for long-term care, and I share your options in a special whiteboard video on the subject. I'll include the link in the description for this video. Tax rate risk is the risk that taxes will be significantly higher in the future. Most of America has its money in tax-deferred investment accounts, which mean they haven't paid tax yet on this money. Does that make it harder to plan for retirement when you don't know the future tax rates and thus how much money you'll have left over? I'll answer the hard questions. It does. So I never get crazy about the future of tax rates because although there are 1,000 reasons why taxes should be significantly higher in the future, we just don't know. I do suggest that you stay aware. Use Roth accounts where you can and carefully design cash value life insurance policies to reduce your future taxes. Roth conversions can be helpful as well if the conditions are right. By the way, there's a playlist here on Get Financial Strength Now called Not So Taxing, where I highlight tax saving strategies. You can also visit the playlist All Things Tax Deferred to learn more about IRAs, Roth accounts, and the like. I'm continually adding videos to help you get more financial strength now, so subscribe so you see the new content. So let's review. The risks that can derail the best laid plans are inflation risk, market risk, sequence of returns risk, long-term healthcare risk, and tax rate risk. Financial strength in these areas doesn't have to mean radical changes, but strength does come from knowing what's coming and tweaking where you can. The next video will be about priorities in general and wealth in particular. Wealth, as has been described in the wonderful book, The Psychology of Money, is what you don't see. And the hardest thing in personal finance is to stop the goalposts from moving, to understand that enough can be enough. Make sure to subscribe by clicking on the Runner Muscle Man, and you should see a link directing you to the Retiring Soon playlist to enjoy more of this series. Thank you for watching.